see that they have thought through these questions at a very detailed level of depth, and they have great responses for each of these. So what problem are you solving? If you cannot clearly explain what problem you're solving in one slide, one sentence, 15 seconds, you've immediately lost 80% of your, if not more, of your potential investors. If you can't clearly explain to an investor what problem you're solving, how are you going to explain it to your customers? How are you going to explain it to the people you're trying to hire, right? How are you going to explain it to your users, to your token holders, all these stakeholders? So you need to be able to crisply and clearly explain what problem you're solving, but also exactly who has this problem, right? Is it DeFi users or is it NFT holders, right? Is it people who are just brand new to DeFi, or is it DeFi power users? Is it DeFi power users on Ethereum, or is it DeFi power users on Solana? Is it DeFi power users on Stacks or DeFi power users on ICP, right? Like, you need to know exactly who has this problem. Is it DeFi power users who provide liquidity, or DeFi power users who make bids and offers on DEXs? Exactly who has this problem. And then why is it a big problem for that audience, right? Why does it matter to them? Why are they going to give a crap about your product? Why are they going to pay for it, right? Why do they care so much about this problem you're solving that they're willing to take this crappy product that you have, let's be honest, because it's a startup and it's an MVP, and use that product and even pay for it? Why? So that's the problem. You got to be able to answer all those aspects really well about the problem. And that's kind of your thesis, right? Like the basis of your thesis is there's this problem that needs to be solved. Now you get into the solution. So how do you solve the problem? Again, you need to be able to explain this in one slide, one sentence, 15 seconds max, right? If you cannot do that, you've already lost me. You also need to be able to explain what is wrong with all the existing solutions to the problem, right? This goes back to what we were talking about, Tushar's quote, right? It's not enough to be right. You need to be right and everyone else be wrong. So it's great that you're building a BRC20 marketplace and riding that wave, but there are 100 other teams that want to do that. What are they doing wrong that you're, avoiding, right? You must know that. Otherwise, you are just one of many. You are not one of one. So why are you not building what your competitors are building, right? This is one of the strongest aspects of a pitch, right? Is not just talking about how do you solve the problem, but what you're not doing and why you're not doing it. And related to that is how you will beat competitors. And please do not say or do not show that competitor slide that everyone shows where it's like all the, every single box is ticked off. Like, we'll have every feature and, we're going to beat our competitors by doing more. Generally, that's a misstep. The best founders, the best teams demonstrate that they know a very small niche in the market, and they're actually doing less, but doing it better than competitors. So if I see that, that's also like a good sign for a great team that I'd be interested in investing in. Then go to market, right? Especially in crypto and Web3, so many people are very guilty of just assuming if I build it, they will come, right? Just because you build a technology doesn't mean anyone gives a crap about it, to be honest. So how will you acquire users, right? How will you get people? And everybody has the, partnerships, on their go-to-market slide. That is meaningless because everyone says partnerships. So who are you going to partner with, right? If you need to partner with centralized exchanges, with sexes, right? Who are your top 5 sexes that you're going after, right? Literally list the companies that you want to partner with. Like, we don't have these partners yet, but these are the companies that we're going after to partner with because they're going to give us access to this type of user, and therefore they're going to convert in this way, and that's like going to cost us this much, and they're going to be this much value, right? That is immensely more powerful and convincing than just saying, oh, partnerships, right? So you got to be able to think through these and answer these questions in incredible level of detail, because that means that you have really thought through the problem. You really have gathered evidence to defend your thesis, right? Versus someone who can just surface level answer these questions. Like, that's not very impressive. And I'm not going to be interested in investing. And finally, for the team, right, we kind of saw this in some of the examples that we looked at to start with. What makes the team special, right? And like listing out that you went to Harvard and all this stuff is great. But honestly, what really matters is that you understand the problem. You understand the user, you understand the problem, and or you understand something about the solutions out there better than your competitors do, right? Better than the other people who are trying to found companies. So I don't care really where you went to school or where you worked. If you're an expert in the thing you're working on, that's by far the most important thing. So that's so you need to be able to answer those questions really to a great level of depth. And if you can't, that's really a big red flag, because presenting and defending a unique thesis is the easiest of these three options, right? Not everyone can do this. Not everyone can necessarily do this without money. I get that. But anyone can theoretically do this. And if you're saying that you can't do this, it's either because you just don't care enough because you haven't invested enough time, or your thesis is wrong, or you are not thinking about the problem correctly. And just to be harsh but blunt, if you're not thinking about it, correctly, and you're thinking kind of unintelligently about it, why would I give you my money, right? You're going to lose it. So I'm not saying you have to be perfect about this the first conversation we have, but at the very least, you should be able to hear feedback from investors and wise people around you and advisors. And when they ask you, well, wait a minute, this part of this doesn't make sense. You say you're going to go after this type of user, but how are you going to acquire them? Maybe it makes more sense to go after this other type of user. And if you look at the data, look at the weight of evidence, and are able to roll with the punches and change, that still works for you. And that can be a great sign, right? So I'm not saying this needs to be perfect the very first time, but it definitely needs to be well thought through and fully fleshed out when you're speaking to investors. And come on, guys, this is like the easiest thing to do out of the options. No one's going to write you a check just because you have an idea. It needs to be really, really sharp and well defended. So some other aspects to consider, that some of them which I alluded to earlier, are your burn rate, right? Like, it is a red flag if a team, even if they're a great team, like at early stages, it depends, I guess, a bit if you're raising like pre-seed or seed, but at the very early stages, if there's a team with like more than 4 people, that's a red flag. Like, why are there 8 people on this team when you have no revenue, right? I write you a check and then it's going to be spent by tomorrow just on lunches. So burn rate is a huge thing that founders sometimes overlook, but that investors, you can bet, are absolutely looking at, even if it's not explicit, right? They're just putting 2 and 2 together and implying what the burn rate is like. Your network, right? So do you have access to certain people that would give you an advantage? Do you have a big network of potential users that you can reach, right? That's also relevant. And also your persistence, right? This is probably the single most important trait for a founder, if not a person just in life, is your persistence. And if you pitch me and I don't invest, but I give you my thoughts and you go away and you refine it, and then a couple of weeks, a couple of months later, you've still been working on the problem and you've cracked a few things and you're still struggling maybe, but you come back and you're able to tell the story of, this is what I realized was wrong. I went away. This is what I learned. Here's the data that supports this new learning, and here's how I'm incorporating it, and here's my new plan. Like, that's a huge positive. So as much as you guys want, or founders want this to be like short and sweet, of just like come up with an idea, right? Hash something out, throw together a deck, raise some money. It is oftentimes not the case. It is oftentimes a much lengthier process, an iterative process. And you can bet that that investors are kind of looking for which founders are able and willing to kind of stick with it and do this and keep improving, because building a business is a very lengthy, difficult process. So if you can't even, stick with it and improve with just a deck, how are you going to stick with it and improve with the much more difficult thing of actually building and scaling the business? So that's pretty much it for me. There's just some quick thoughts on my perspective.